Welcome to PDX Spotlight. I'm your host, Eric Hansen. Tonight we're in studio with Jennifer Batten.
Salespeople, I don't know, especially the sneezy, sleazy, low-down salespeople. Look here. It just make you so mad that you buy something and then people lie and say do this here. Of course, they don't do a damn thing like that. It piss you off. They don't know. Oh, don't try to carry it back. You gonna end up with something more worse than what you got. They need an ass whooping when they need shit. Stop that shit right there. Look here. Something like that there. Yeah. Moms, that's how they are, baby. Just go. They're crazy. You know what I'm saying?
those of you who may not know, Jennifer Batten was the touring lead guitar player for Michael Jackson for over 10 years and has done side projects with the likes of Jeff Beck, Carl Anderson, Carmen Appice, and a whole host more. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here tonight. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
You betcha. So naturally, we want to talk about your time that you spent in the highlights of your career with regard to playing with Michael Jackson and Jeff Beck, but I think I would really like to try to go in a direction to try to unpack who Jennifer Batten is, not only as a musician, but as a human being.
That would be good for both of us to know.
You were born in upstate New York. You and your family made the transition to San Diego, California. You were about 9 years old. And then eventually you moved up to the LA area. Somewhere in there, you were given a very special present. What was that present?
I certainly was. Actually, I was 8 years old. It was a year before we left upstate New York in this little tiny town that we lived in. It was the coolest electric guitar ever because it was red and black and electric. Most kids get an acoustic for their first guitar. So especially back then, many years ago, it was very rare to get an electric for your first one. And I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. It looked like a guitar like the Beatles had on TV, the Ed Sullivan show. And I couldn't play anything, you know, but I would just walk down the street.
Boy, that changed.
Well, I took lessons right away. Learned my first 3 notes.
What genre did you identify with to, you know, kind of chart your path as being this, you know, soon to be a guitar legend?
Well, when you're young, things change so fast. You know, when I first started, the Beatles and the Turtles were it, you know, pop kind of stuff like that. And I was just influenced by my teachers. My next teacher taught me finger picking and folk kind of stuff. Then the next teacher just happened to be into blues. So I went through all these different genres. I went through blues for quite a few years. I was really into it because once you figure out what those 3 chords are, then you can jam in your bedroom for hours, and yeah, that was big fun. I think that the big turning point is when I discovered Jeff Beck. At that time, he was on the radio with his the biggest selling instrumental record for many, many years was Blow by Blow, and that just had a huge impact and still does.
you help us understand some of the challenges that you faced being a female, breaking into a largely male-dominated profession?
Well, especially with electric guitar, it's not that uncommon to have women strum and sing, but electric is just kind of odd. It's not so odd now, but back then it was. And I think it's just because it's an aggressive sport, as it were, playing rock and roll guitar. And you got to have attitude, you got to be aggressive. And in a lot of families, it's not cool for women to be that way. And it was just something that was in me, so I just pushed it through. But I wasn't aware of prejudice until it would hit me in the face. Like, people would say things, and I'm like, really? Or when I went to Musicians Institute, I signed up, and I was the only female with 59 other guys.
Wow.
That was really the wake-up call, that it was not an ordinary thing for a woman to do.
What about now? What do you think the music industry holds in store for musicians in general, but especially aspiring female musicians? Good time, bad time?
I think it's wide open for them now. And I thought the time was 1987, where Prince had Wendy and Lisa in the band, you know, on video. Every time you turn on MTV, they were there. And Billy Idol had a female in the band. I thought, this is now. This is going to happen. Then Michael's got one. We're off and running. And then it didn't happen. You know, and it's not till about now, with Orianthi taking off. She's with Alice Cooper now, right, too. She's got a couple great records out. She sings, plays. And there's just some phenomenal female players out there. There's a couple 20-year-olds. Kristen Capolino is fantastic. And there's another one, Desiree Bassett, who's out with the Michael Jackson Cirque du Soleil touring show right now. And I'm really looking forward to see what they're going to be doing in the next 10 years. And because of YouTube, that has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely.
That, you know, you can learn something, film it, and, you know, there's not a month that goes by where somebody doesn't send me a link of some 8, 10, 12-year-old girl that's just killing it. You know, and I'm just like, wow, if I only had YouTube when I was growing up, I mean...
What would you consider to be your big break, the one that it would be the point of no return, that you were in this for the long haul? Was there such an event?
There wasn't a moment. It was just kind of a growing thing in my head. And I remember after I had gone to Musicians Institute, I went to a junior college in San Diego, and I wasn't even signed up. I just wanted to play with the big band. And I just always remember having a vision of where I wanted to be, which was on stage playing for a lot of people. It wasn't anything as specific as playing with a certain band or anything. It's just, that was like my visual mantra every day. And as it turns out, there's the self-help books right and left that teach you to do that. But I did it naturally, and I think by having that drive there all the time just brought situations, attracted situations, and got in the mix and started playing with bands and getting my name around.
You have stated that you were at a point where you were playing with 6 or 7 different
Yeah.
bands, and kind of stressful, maybe didn't find your niche in any one band, and then something pretty incredible happened. You got a call. Well, actually, you got a call to do an audition. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, in LA, most people are doing original music. So it's not anything that you can play 3 or 4 nights a week. It's usually once a month. So it sounds like a lot when I was in 7 different bands, but I was, playing every weekend, but it certainly wasn't a 5 nights a week or anything like that. And I remember at one point I just felt frustrated. I just wanted to be further along, and there wasn't any of the bands that really knocked my socks off. And all of a sudden I get a call that Michael Jackson is auditioning people for his first solo tour, and they wanted me to come down and audition. So I asked when the last possible time I could come down was so I could stay home and work on tunes. And 2 or 3 days later, I went in, and I had, I don't know how many tunes down, but I walked in and there was no band. It was just me and a video camera. So the guy comes up to me, and the only advice I was given was, as with most gigs, most of the parts are rhythm guitar. And it's very funky with him. So he said, just play some funky rhythm guitar. So I did that, and then I started soloing. In all the bands I was with, I had a solo section, so that was pretty comfortable to just go off. And I had been playing the Beat It solo in a cover band prior to that. So I already knew it, and I knew he could certainly use that in the show. So I think that's pretty much what got me the gig.
Fantastic. Wow, Michael Jackson. So, if I'm not mistaken, you were in competition with roughly 100 other guitar players, is that correct?
That's what I heard, yeah.
So, knowing that, I mean, did you know that at the time you were auditioning, that there were so many more that are being looked at?
I'm not aware that I was aware.
Wow. So then a few days later, you were invited back into another audition, is that correct?
No, well, when I got the call, and it was several days later, every time I'd come home, I'd check my cassette answering machine. That's how long ago it was, in '87. And there was nothing. And I thought, wow, they probably got somebody else. And then I got the call that said Michael was interested. It's a matter of coming down, playing with the band, and see how it goes.
Now, was that first, when you came down to play with the band, was that the band minus Michael Jackson?
Yeah, we played as a band for a month before we met him. Band was in one room, singers in one room, dancers in one room. And essentially what we were learning was the live Victory tour that he had done with his brothers in '84, I think.
Wow.
So we, you know, it was a lot of time to get it down, but a lot of the time was spent on sounds, dialing in sounds, because everything we played was a hit, and everybody had heard Beat It a billion times on the radio. So he wanted us to dial in and get as close to what people were used to hearing as we could.
Now, this is a seasoned band, and certainly this
Yes.
is a larger venue that you had been used to playing with and everything like that. How did the band receive you?
I was really lucky, because I've heard nightmare stories about, you know, green people coming in and just getting the crap kicked out of them. But everybody was awesome. Greg Fillinganes was the musical director, an extreme talent that's probably on a ton of records that you have. He joined Stevie Wonder. He had to get a note from his mother to join Stevie Wonder when he was 16.
Wow.
Because he was underage. Ricky Lawson, rest his soul, he passed recently, the drummer. Just everybody was kind as could be. It was really wonderful, and all these years later, we still keep in touch.
A sense family, you know.
It was very much. Yeah, I mean, it was exciting for everybody, because it didn't get any higher than that. Michael Jackson in 1987 was at the top of his game.
Absolutely. Help us understand that first moment that you were face to face with Michael Jackson. What was that?
We had all moved from our individual rooms to a big sound stage where they could do the, you know, special effects, pyro, and everything that needed a lot of room. And we had heard that if he was happy with what he was hearing, he'd be dancing. And we knew he was going to come in that day at some point, but we didn't know when, so we were just playing along. And we were in the middle of some song, and he came in, and we played it till the end, and sure enough, he was dancing. And when we stopped, we all went up individually. People that didn't know him already were introduced to him. And I just remember being this close to him and thinking, he was stunning. I mean, just radiant, gorgeous.
Wow.
Very kind, soft-spoken. And he came in with his manager, Frank DeLeo, at the time, who looked like a total mobster. He was, you know, he had the ponytail and the cigar. I mean, like a cartoon image almost. But that will forever be burned in my mind.
If you look back or people research you, or if they remember seeing you back then, probably one of the most notable things they know is the white
Oh,
hair and the poofy hair and everything like that. That was actually not necessarily your call. That was something that was part of the show. Is that correct?
It was Michael's idea.
Nice.
Because he wanted me to stand out. And, I mean, he had been in show business since he was 5, so he was very aware of every aspect of the show. And there's so many pictures where the lights are such that you only see him with the spotlight on him, and you see my hair in the background. That's it. So I kept it. I mean, I never would have dyed my hair if it was just a local band. Are you kidding me?
Now it's kind of your trademark, right? Sort of.
Well,
kinda.
since Michael, sure, yeah.
Calling card. I want to take a little side journey here, a performance journey with Michael Jackson. I'm reminded, and I love this, I've told you this, being a big sports fan, in 1993, Michael Jackson, with you and the rest of the band, did the Super Bowl halftime show. Me personally, I don't think there's been a halftime performance like that since.
Yeah.
But in this particular show, and people can certainly watch it if they haven't already, but there were some visual effects that were pretty incredible. There were Michael Jackson impersonators that were popping out of stacks along the stadium and everything like that. You shared a very funny story about that.
Yeah. Because I was on stage ready to do our thing, and I didn't know that those guys were going to be jumping out of the scoreboards. And all of a sudden I see this poof of smoke and an impersonator jumping out, and I'm like, wow. And then another one comes on the other side, and I'm like, that. So I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know the kids with the cards were going to happen. Didn't get the memo. I just knew my part.
So how did that event compare to stadiums that you filled all around the world?
You know, that was really special and really joyous, partly because it was a one-of-a-kind thing that would only ever happen once. And it was really intense because it was live. Nothing could go wrong. And of course it did, because it's live. And one of the things I remember is the fog. You know, we were in fog because it picks up light better, and it's just a special effect. There's one corner where Michael and I are together, and we get buried in the fog. You see nobody for, you know, a split couple seconds. But I thought that was pretty damn funny afterwards. But It was just exciting. Before we got out there, I mean, you have the time of a couple potato chip commercials to put the stage together in the middle of the football field.
Wow.
So they, as I recall, they had like a racing gun where they go, ready, pop, and everybody takes their pieces of the stage and runs out there and connects them as fast as they can. We get on stage, and by the time the cameras come back, we're like, we've been here forever.
Never move. give us your thoughts about Michael Jackson. We know him openly as the musician, the entertainer, probably, arguably the best entertainer of all time.
Yeah.
What about Michael Jackson, the human being?
He was one of the kindest people I've ever met. I find that great artists are sensitive. You have to be. That's just part of the deal. And he had great empathy for people. I remember one of the times we were at rehearsal, and there was a little break, and he came over to a cluster of us to see who had never been to Europe before. And he was so excited for us because he goes, boy, I've been going there for so many years, I feel like an old man. And he was 29, you know. He never lost his temper. I mean, you think of the pressure that he was under every night. 50,000 people just paid $100. Give us a show, you know. It's a lot of pressure. You got to be on your game all the time. And I think if it was me, I would have been snapping out. You know, you just explode. But he was always very calm. And one thing I remember that was hilarious, on one of the tours, they had what they call the cherry picker for Beat It, where he would come out on this arm that would come out over the stage. And when we were rehearsing it, the cherry picker came out, and it started turning like this, like it was dumping him off. Yeah, so everybody's on the radios, breaker, breaker, come back, good buddy. You know? And slowly, they brought him back to the stage. We stopped playing, and his only response was, he comes up to the mic and goes, you know, I don't mean to pull rank, but this needs to be fixed. You know, where, you know, you've heard stories about other big stars, like, you're fired, this cannot happen in my world. But he was always very, very kind, calm, collected, and shared a lot with us. He shut down the Tokyo Disneyland so that we could all hang out together.
Wow.
You know, I mean, who but Elvis could have done that?
Right.
So he was thinking about us, and he appreciated us. So it was just a wonderful experience.
That's really heartwarming. Did you ever get tired of watching him perform? I mean, just captivated, not only with his music and his writing, but his dancing. There's people who emulate that right now, but they're not all the way there, and I don't think ever will be.
No, he was one of a kind. It's never going to happen again in our lifetime, for sure. You know, that's when I would pinch myself, is during Billie Jean, at the end, there was a thing with just drums and dancing. And that's when I didn't have to concentrate on anything. I was just in the back just watching him, and it was just stunning every night. He'd be improvising, and I noticed too, when he'd be doing moves with the other dancers, there was a grace about him that the other guys had it nailed. I mean, they were the best of LA, but there was a grace about him that just was very special.
Now, while on tour, mind you, with Michael Jackson, there was a particular concert, and you aggressively invited one of your guitar mentors, your guitar idols, to the show, and that being Jeff Beck. Talk about that. This is a really good story.
Well, one of the guys in the band on the Bad Tour had worked with Jeff when he was out with Jan Hammer, and he said he could introduce us, and it didn't happen. So I thought, damn it. Next time the next tour came along, it was my one goal, that's the word, of the Dangerous Tour to meet Jeff, and I knew we were coming to England again. So every country we went to, I would ask the Sony reps if they had any contact with him, and eventually somebody came through and said, yeah, we'll invite him to a show, get him VIP tickets and the whole 9 yards. So we were at Wembley Stadium, 80,000 people, and 2 opening acts went on, and then Michael canceled the show. So Jeff got turned away at the gate.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, of all shows they cancel. So I got his number. I called him up and said, well, I don't know when or if they're going to make up the show, but can I meet you anyway? And so I went down to where he was recording the next day and got his autograph, and my record had just come out, my first record. And I also did Flight of the Bumblebee and did a video for that when I was covered with bees, and that had appeared on MTV in England. And so I had just gotten a copy of that. So I gave him, you know, the freaky video and my record, and think, you know, I got my autograph. I thought I would never see him again. And lo and behold, a couple months later, he called up and said, every time I try to speak in a British accent, it sounds like Monty Python. I finally got the chance to listen to your record properly. And he said, let's do a record together. And my mind was just shattered. It was just amazing. And he was just going on and on about my record. My ego was just going, and as soon as I hung up, I thought, you know, it was going, I mean, it was very lofty because I always looked up to him. I mean, every guitar player in their right mind, that's the cat.
Sure.
That's the cat that goes beyond technique, beyond anything, into this other dimension that is, you just can't put words to.
Do you guys still communicate today?
Yeah.
Yeah, really? Any future collaboration possibly?
I would say he's one of the loudest guitar players on earth, and my ears will never be the same. And I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but I'm cool. We did 3 years. It was a wonderful time. And we have a very similar sense of humor, so that's what usually keeps us in contact.
That's great. One parting shot on performances, and I ran across this last night. And I saw that, you know, you've played with many wonderful musicians and had many wonderful, you know, side projects and everything like that. But I saw this. I should have brought it. This picture of you on stage just ripping it with Slash. Slash, I'm a pretty big fan. So what's it like playing with Slash?
You know, it was like the Three Bears. It was like, who has taken my porridge? I showed up to the gig. Nobody had said anything about Slash being there in Spain with Michael Jackson. And I go for my guitars, and there's a bunch of Les Pauls there, which is his kind of guitars. That's the first I knew that he was playing that night. It was cool. And I remember we played on Black or White, and normally I would have my spots where I'd run to the front with Michael, and most of the song I'd be back with the band. That night, he wanted me to be on the stage the whole time. And I was just headbanging for a solid 5 minutes. My neck hurt for a week after. That's my biggest memory of playing with Slash. Headbanging was killing me. Yeah, it was just fun. And then I saw him again when there was a really great tribute to Les Paul 6 months before he passed at the Cleveland Rock Hall of Fame. And there were a bunch of guitar players there, and Slash was on that gig too. We did the ending jam where we all played one at a time, and Les and his band were on stage. So.
is your overall impression of the Portland music scene?
Awesome. I love it. It's really vibrant. There's so many players up here and so many great players. And I think one by one, people are leaving LA and discovering it. It's a lot nicer up here. Even going to the airport is such an upgrade from LAX. It's actually a pleasant experience. Gosh, you know, I had a gig booked for 2 years before I moved up here. And so I needed a new band. So I got online and I ended up with Kevin Rankin. He's a great drummer that plays with a lot of different bands around here. One of the friendliest guys in town. So that was a great first guy to meet. Wow, this is exactly what I wanted. You know, somebody that'll actually return my calls. And I've seen a lot of players. Terry Robb is phenomenal. Mary Flower's got that acoustic thing nailed. There's talent everywhere you look. And I took a solid year off when I moved up here. I had no idea what the housing market was doing, but I scored in LA by selling my house. I bought a brand new house up here in the forest, and I took a year off and saw all kinds of bands, every craft show, every art show. And I was busier than if I had a 9-to-5 job. I was just out all the time discovering things. And I took stained glass classes and really got into glass and fused glass obsessively for several years. It's very positive.
But now you're in a different kind of art that actually, visual art that you introduced me to called steampunk.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything to show right there, but it's unique. Talk about the history of steampunk and why it appeals to you.
Steampunk is Victorian, Edwardian era sci-fi, a la Jules Verne. And I can't tell you how it got in my brain, and maybe it was in a dream one night, but I became obsessed. I tend to become obsessed with various things. And it's about fantasy airships and just, you know, going deep, deep, deep in the imagination of making the impossible real. And so I just started building things, little airships, and I started adding vacuum tubes like you would see in the back of an amplifier. And all of a sudden I'm putting goggles on them and a helmet, and they're becoming human planes. It's kind of wacky up here. You never know what's going to come out.
Actually, I've seen some of your art, and I think it's wonderfully eclectic and amazing, and certainly a great conversation piece for sure.
Well, thanks. And it's a great balance to music,
sure.
too. You know, music can be like output, output, output. And to go into a whole other realm of the creative side that's just visual without any music, I found that when I came back to music, it was fresh. So it's a great balance to go there.
Sounds like it was the move and the respite that you needed in order to, you know, rekindle your creative juices. Yeah. You had other side projects too, and especially during that year, you're an author. You've written a couple of books. I think you have a current project. You also do instructional DVDs, and you have a multimedia project. Can you pull out a few sound bites from those and talk to us about what all of that means to you?
Just keeping that creative cell active in any way possible. After I had played with Michael Jackson and Jeff Beck, I thought, you know, I started visualizing putting my own band together. I thought, okay, it's time to do my own music. I had 3 CDs out, or 2 at the time. And I thought, there's got to be a way, because I don't like being the den mother. I don't like the one that calling up people and, you know, arranging schedules. And I just want to be a guitar player. So I looked, you know, I started to break out in hives, think of taking people on the road, and I didn't know how many people would show up, and the financial thing, and then everybody that's had a band has experienced whining and complaining and people coming late and not showing the music or knowing the music. And so that was a neurosis in there. And I thought, there's got to be a way I can do this alone. So I came up with the idea of films. And I had done clinics all over the world for years where I would play to tracks, but that's not good enough to be on stage for a show, you know. So I thought there's got to be another way to add more entertainment. And I put out the word to filmmakers for year and a half. The film schools, I go to Japan every year. There's a film school there and the local film school. And after a year and a half of people asking for MP3s to work with, I had 4 films. That was it.
Wow.
Makes for a very short show. So fortunately, somebody that made the title track of the Whatever CD film showed me how to do it. And I became completely obsessed in that. And now I have probably 3 hours of films that are cut in sync with my tunes, as well as some covers that I've added too. And I get a lot of public domain stuff, old black and white stuff. I've just finished a film for Walk Like an Egyptian. That's Felix the Cat in Egypt. It's awesome. And, you know, I just cut it to the beat so it makes sense. Normally, a film will take me 40 or 50 hours because I'm downloading so many different films and just finding my favorite bits that has to do with the subject matter and then endlessly cutting. But I love it.
I'd like to give you an opportunity and speak to each of your 3 albums. The first one was in 1992, and it was actually after you came off the Bad tour and you collaborated with
Michael Sembello.
Michael Sembello.
Yeah.
He's Stevie Wonder's guitar player.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 other efforts after that. Listened to a lot of it last night, and I did see an evolution in your music style.
I hope so.
And a very good evolution
Well, thank you.
in that style. But certainly, back on the first album, it's a lot funky, and I get that too because you were touring with Michael Jackson. But I could see how that how a little bit more of you came into the other albums, and all that. And your albums are Above, Below, and Beyond from 1992. Tribal Rage, Momentum, and then that was a 1997 effort.
Yeah.
And then in 2007, you came out with Whatever, and that's got an accompanying DVD with it as well.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the films I use in my show are in that DVD. Yeah, the first one, I mean, your first effort is always nerve-wracking. You know, this is your voice into the world, and I think I felt more pressure than I needed to at that time. But the first record's kind of all over the map. I was just kind of getting my sea legs, so to speak. I got Flight of the Bumblebee on there, and Giant Steps, which is a jazz tune, and some metal and some this and that. It's kind of, even though it came out in '92, it's more 80s metal, because I was really listening to a lot of that. Then the next one was a true band effort that was self-produced with Glenn Sobel on drums, who's out with Alice Cooper now, and Ricky Walking on bass. Just really creative guys. And we sat in the drummer's mother's shoe closet. That was where we rehearsed. And she was a ballerina, so she had a lot of shoes.
Wow.
But nobody else would have fit. And we rehearsed, and I had most of the stuff written, but just gave creative freedom. And it was just a blast. It was a really good, fun thing to do. And then, I mean, it was 10 years later, and the Whatever record, most of the stuff was written for Jeff Beck. Because when I joined him, he's always hungry for tunes, more tunes, more tunes. He's always looking for that magic tune that'll make the album happen. So I wrote a bunch of stuff, and the stuff that didn't make it ended up on my record, which is cool, because it was a great motivator to get off my butt.
I would say so. What's next for you?
What's next? Well, I've gotten into recording instructional DVDs for the TrueFire.com company. And I'm having a blast doing that because it's a whole other side of my brain. It's, breaking up and scientifically dissecting things I've been doing for years and putting them in an instructional format. I'm really enjoying it, and the company's great, too. They treat me great. And that's going to be an ongoing thing. So I'm always working on a new project coming up. In fact, the next one, they have a series called 50 Licks. And the 50 licks I'm going to be doing are giant intervallic skips, which is something that I'm really into. So that's where my head is focused right now. And always making more films and stretching out, doing different textures of films, and just seeing where video can take me. When I first got into this show, I bought a motorhome and put 40,000 miles on it going around America and discovering my own country for a change. Because I put so many miles in other countries, always flying off to Japan or Europe or wherever. It was really fun. I went down to the Florida Keys and just all over the place, and just discovering how vastly different the landscape is from Florida to Texas to Arizona. It was great fun. So just keeping at it, really.
How can people learn more about you? What's your contact information?
They can go to my website, either jenniferbatten.com or just Batten, BATTEN.com will get them to my site, and click contact and I get the mails. So it's pretty easy. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. I have a special Facebook page just for Portland, Jennifer Batten PDX. So I'll be posting my local gigs there. But any gig that's confirmed is going to be on batten.com.
We really thank you deeply for being here and spending some time with us.
My pleasure.
We're with Jennifer Batten. I'm Eric Hansen. This is PDX Spotlight, Northwest Music Exposed.
Wow.